Hi guys, welcome back to my podcast channel Something You Wanna Know. Well, for today's episode, I have a guest who is a podcaster herself and a lovely person to talk to. She believes to live in the moment, and that's what we will be talking about on how to live our best life and enjoy the little things. She is none other than Shwetha Sivaraman. Her podcast name is Being Miraculous, and she is a self-help podcaster and also a millennial coach. Please do follow her. I will leave the link in the description below. In this episode, we will be discussing about our thoughts and our views on living our best life. So before we start the episode, I would like to tell you something. Even my podcast has different guests each episode. And for my next episode, I was looking for someone who could really speak from their heart. So one day I was Instagramming and I came across your profile, and then I started listening to your podcast as well. And it really touched me and it helped me think in a different way. So as a fan of your podcast, I really like to thank you once again, and really kudos to whatever you're doing. And I really enjoy, listening to your podcast.
Thank you, Desmond, for your kind words, and it's amazing to be here. Absolutely.
Yes. Since now we have been talking from past few weeks about this recording, about this episode, I got to know a bit about you. But if you can tell our listeners about yourself, so even they can get to know much better.
Sure. So long story short, my name is Shwetha Sivaraman. I'm born and brought up in Chennai, and I'm currently based out of Bombay. I'm an entrepreneur. I run a content company called The Seasoned Storytellers, which is my second stint after my MBA. So my first stint was as a corporate executive with a leading group in India. And ever since that, I've also started Being Miraculous as a passion project of mine, living life to the fullest. And I started this sometime in 2016, which was just as a travel blog. And now we talk about life and life inspiration and living life to the fullest. Mm-hmm. And to do my bit better, I've also been certified and I'm getting trained and accredited as a life coach to help people maximize their fullest potential in their life.
Okay, that's really nice. And since your podcast name is Being Miraculous, the first thing which came in my mind is like, what is the meaning of miraculous? I got to know because I listened to your podcast, but if you can tell our listeners as well, what is the meaning of miraculous?
Right. I get asked that a lot. I cannot tell you how many times. A lot of people assume because it's miraculous, it sounds like miraculous and it still fits into what I do. So they kind of assume that. But miraculous actually is a derivative of the Greek word miraki, which means to do an act with complete attention. Right. It is about living. So it's about living life with all zeal and ardor and doing everything that you do with devotion. Okay. And when I was looking to, rebrand my travel blog that was about travel, which later moved on to be about life, and I realized what exactly about life did I want to capture? What essence of life did I want to capture in my blog? And that's when I came across this word miraki. And, at that time, we all keep running, what next? All our lives, we are thinking about what next. And miraculous felt like that void missing, that, if we could only stay in that present moment and enjoy what we have at this point in time, and, the whole stop to smell the roses kind of a feeling. I felt that if we could only live life every day, every single moment, if we could live like that, it'll be beautiful. And that's how the name was. So Being Miraculous is living a life with full of miraki, which means to be completely devoted and completely attentive to everything that's happening to us in our life, instead of wallowing about the past or worrying about the future. Just anchoring ourselves to the present moment and being there for yourself.
Like just being for yourself, living that moment at that present time. So yeah, it's really a good point, and it is a good name as well for a podcast. So if you can tell me, how did Being Miraculous start, and like what is your main purpose for your podcast?
Right. So very honestly, I've been a seeker all my life. I say that a lot of times, and what I mean by that is that I've always questioned in terms of, what is life? Is there more to it? What is it? And, is this all there is? And from a very young age, and I always felt that, life is a gift, because for whatever reason, I felt like, we all come with an expiry date in this world, right? So that essence of that time being very short is something that has been there in my mind for a very long time, since I was a kid. So all these, petty fights or conflicts, or, when we bring in our egos in life, I used to think that, that's not how you should live life, in terms of, there should be more to life. But obviously that was childhood, and then you grow up and you forget about all of those things, right? So you get on with life. And life happened, and I used to travel a lot. And what used to happen was that every time I traveled, I discovered something new about myself. And this happened over and over again, and it happened quite a few times and then I realized that, that's how my blog started, as a travel blog, because every time I traveled, I felt like I reconnected with some part of myself. And then over time, I realized that, 3-4 years later, that it wasn't that travel or the thrill of travel that I was looking for. It was that, sense of discovering myself, or being that liberated, free self that I was looking for. And that's when it clicked that, what I've been passionate about all my life was living this life to the fullest. And that is what made absolute sense to me, in terms of, if we could live every moment the way it was meant to be, enjoying the simplest things and finding joy and meaning in everything that we do, then that was a beautiful life for me. And so that's how we shifted from that whole travel perspective to life and life inspiration. And Being Miraculous essentially started out as a life inspiration blog. But what I used to feel was that, obviously, we renamed it all in the beginning of 2019, I think, or late 2018.
Okay.
But then by then, obviously, the blog bubble was almost towards the end, because it was saturated. Everybody was tired of reading. And that's when podcasting was just coming up, right? And very honestly, at that point, I was like, I always knew that I would love to have a conversation, because I love talking personally. So it's something that comes very natural to me. And also life is something I'm very passionate about. So I don't usually look at life as something just, arbitrary. I love going back to the science of it. I love reading about neuroscience, understanding, the logic behind everything that people do. So both of them put together is how the podcast started. It actually started purely on a whim, though I wanted to start since January 2019. I think I eventually did it in October 2019. So it's been about 9 months of that, and I just launched my 25th episode. So it's been a beautiful journey. And so very honestly, when I started my podcast, it was just about me sharing my own life's discovery. But in terms of my journey of self-discovery and the things I learned in that process. But what happened along the way is, obviously, people started resonating with it. People started connecting with it, saying, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, right? If they were going through something similar in life, and they connected with it so much, because words have that power, right? And it grew into something much bigger. And slowly what I realized was that people were starting to ask me life advice in terms of what should they do, right? They find themselves stuck in a career, and they want to shift their jobs, but they don't know what to do. Now, it's one thing to talk about my journey of self-discovery, because I know myself. I know what worked for me. I know what didn't work for me, right? So that part of it was very easy. But when it comes to giving advice to somebody I'm meeting on, say, Instagram, right? That felt like a whole different ball game with me. And especially with the lockdown and things like that, that's when I realized just positive inspiration is not enough, right? I can talk about all the things that worked for me, but someone listening to it, someone who is in a completely different situation, might think about it and say, hey, you know what, she had it easy, or she doesn't have the constraints that I have. So, and what constraints she had doesn't work for me, and whatever she solved doesn't work for me. So then it is very hard to make lasting impact happen when you're doing just positive inspiration, right? And that's when the need to do more than just podcasting came in, which is when I discovered coaching as a means to help people out in terms of helping them find the answers within themselves. Because if there's one thing that I'm clear, is that Being Miraculous does not provide you advice, right? It's not going to tell you, tuning into Being Miraculous, you're not going to be able to change your life. If there's one thing that I have discovered, it is that all the answers that we're seeking are within.
Correct.
It's just about being able to pen that down and say, that is what I'm looking for. So coaching seemed the perfect fit in terms of helping people out and saying that, if you're stuck, come reach out to me, let's have conversations, and I'll help you discover that within you, and hopefully that should answer your questions, right? So that's how coaching happened. And the the overall mission with being miraculous is simply to reach 1 million lives. It seems like a very tall number, but I feel that it was just a purpose that I feel it'll means a lot to me in terms of being able to touch 1 million lives. If over the course of my entire life, if the people could just have a different perspective towards life, and even if they were to live life to the fullest, even if it's for a day, even if it's for a couple of minutes, that's all I could ask for.
Surely you will touch 1 million life. At least you have touched mine, and it really helped me. I really like and enjoy listening to your podcast. If you can tell me one moment in your life when you realized this is the time you need to start being positive, or you need to start coaching others, or you need to start advising others.
Sure. So probably I'll answer that as the one moment in life when I realized that life should be more than what it was for me personally, rather than talking about, I think coaching and advice happened a lot later. This is a couple of years back. It's actually a very personal story. I haven't shared that before, but it was me and my friend actually, after a very long week at work, we were at Mahalakshmi Racecourse here in Bombay. It was one of those exhibition days, and it was crazily packed. It was a Friday night. And obviously we were so exhausted after work, we said that, we're not going to do all of this. So we decided to walk away from the crowds a little bit. And slowly we found our way to the stands. Obviously there was nobody at the stands at that point in time. It was 8:30, right? And both of us were cribbing about work, right?
Okay.
Different parts of work, different parts of life, and we were in our good part of 20s. And I don't know, for some reason, I never knew it at that point in time, but when I look back at that moment is so crystal clear, embedded in my head. Like I remember that, it was lush green meadows, because obviously the race course, it was just monsoon season. So it was green, lush green, and it was like a vivid contrast to all the tall buildings. You could see the whole of Bombay skyline there, and tall dark buildings all lit up, and this green grass. And me and my friend, we were actually doing that conversation where both of us were talking about ourselves, right? We were so immersed in our problems. It wasn't even that we were responding to each other. It was just the two of us in this backdrop, and I was scribbling and she was scribbling in parallel. And for some reason, at that point I said, this cannot be how life is, right? We were both young, we were both, we had a good part of our life ahead of us, and I felt like that's not how life should be. And that's when I realized change had to happen. Obviously I didn't wake up and quit my job the next day. We all are in a real world, we all have responsibilities. So it doesn't work that way, and I don't advise that to anybody as well. But it was a slow process of discovery that started from there. I started changing things that weren't working for me. I started voicing out things that weren't working for me. I started to think, what I'm engaging in right now, does that make sense for me? If not, what should I do? And slowly that questioning started happening at a subconscious level as well, in terms of, is this right? Is this wrong for me? And that, I think, eventually led me to where I am today. And all of this coaching and advising, I think, happened really over time. I don't think it was, there was any point in time where I felt, this is when I should be probably advising people, because the one thing that I always believe is that none of us are perfect, right? Correct. I think perfect is a myth. We are all work in progresses. We, some things might be our strengths, some things will be our weaknesses, and that will be so for the rest of our lives. I remember as a kid, I used to think, when I grow up, everything will be fine because I would have sorted everything else, and, everything would be okay. But then, as you grow up, you realize that that's just a fallacy. You think, you get that college, or you get that placement, or you get that offer, things will be all right after that. But then you realize that that's never the case, right? You're always growing, you're always improving. So that was probably the one moment that changed the course of my life without me knowing it at that point, of course, but it did.
In fact, we are always learning and growing each day, as well as enjoy the little things, because nowadays what is happening is, people are so much busy in working and achieving something that they have plans for next 20 years. In next 20 years, I'm going to do something. I'm going to purchase a house, or I'm going to collect so much of money. But what they tend to forget is to enjoy that little things. See, no doubt you you achieve your goals, but you need to enjoy that little things as well. So if you can tell me, like, what stops a normal person from enjoying that little things, or what stops us from living our best life, if you can advise us, what is your point of view on this?
So there are many things that hold us back from living our best lives, right? One, of course, is fear, right? The most primary thing that all of us are driven by is that, what if we keep thinking in our head, saying that, what if I make this decision and something goes wrong? What if I do that thing and something else happens instead? Humans, we've been conditioned to be safe, right? To always take conservative choices, to always be safe. But what we need to realize is that the fundamental nature of life is uncertain, right? If anything, this COVID times has brought to attention is that nothing we take for granted can be taken for granted, right? And that's the fundamental nature of life. But one of the biggest things that hold us back from living life to the fullest, I feel, is fear.
Correct.
Second is, what will other people say, right? A lot of us live our entire lives for the society.
Correct.
Those unknown people with no names or no faces determine our entire life, right? We let go of what we want. We let go of our own liberty in just to please somebody, right? And it's not the thing is that there's no right or wrong when it comes to life. I think I want to reinstate that it's just the choices that you make. At the end of the day, when I'm saying living your best life, is that you should look back with no regrets. That you took the chances you took, you did everything you could. I'm not saying that living your best life will assure you success. Nothing assures you success in this life. But looking back and knowing that you did all you could at that point in time, that is what gives you that peace of mind at the end of your life, right? So when I'm saying living your best life is just that. So if at the end of the day you decide that pleasing society is more important than being yourself for you, then that is absolutely fine too, right? But knowing what you want and going after it is the most important thing to live your best life. So second is, of course, what will society think? Third, I feel, is our own self-limiting beliefs, right?
Okay.
We tell ourselves these stories. We tell ourselves based on whatever experience we've had in our past that Shwetha can do this, or Shwetha is shy, or Shwetha is an introvert, or Shwetha is this. Each of that with a period, with a full stop, we add that to ourselves, right? We live by that story. The problem is that the minute you change that story, your life can also change, but you need to change that story, and only you can do that. So the third thing that I feel holds us back from living our best life, or to authentically express ourselves and live lives the way we really want, is our own limiting beliefs in terms of, what if I cannot do that? That is 3. And I think 4, if I were to tell you, is that we really don't know what we want. I think a lot of us go around unhappy with what we are doing. It's not that we are not aware. We are aware that we are not, doing what we need to do or what we must do. But the point is, we can't ever place a finger on that thing that will make us happy. That's because we've never taught to sit and pause and reflect, right? We've only been taught to, keep running, keep chasing, as long as you're a hamster in the wheel, you're continuously running after the next thing, the next promotion, the next salary hike, the next increment, the next company, the next job shift. It is never ending. And as long as you're in that race, you'll never probably understand in terms of what is it that you really want. And if we were to just pause to probably understand it, we will know what to fix, right? I always say this: awareness is curative. If we know what is wrong or what is not working, that is curative in itself. You don't have to do anything. But the fourth thing I would probably say with what stops us from living our best life is lack of awareness of what we would like to do.
Lack of awareness. And sometimes what happens is, people, they have a lot of negative thoughts, and that is which puts them down, and that is which stops them to do something what they really love. Maybe they might be going to office every day, but they are not really happy with that. But what I can say is that if someone tries to find out what they really want to do in life, and then if you focus and if you continue doing that, maybe you will able to live your best life. And the next thing what I was trying to say is that, see, sometimes it's okay to be negative, because you get negative thoughts. see, you cannot be always positive, because what happens is, okay, you're positive because something good has happened, but tomorrow there will be something negative as well. But we should not look back and say, no, it was a bad day. We should in fact learn something from a negative or from a bad day. So if you can put some points about, it's okay to be negative sometime in life, like, it's okay to even get negative thoughts in life.
Absolutely. I think as humans, all of these emotions are very, very natural in terms of sadness or anger or betrayal or jealousy or despair. All of these emotions are very, very natural. I actually read this somewhere that, saying you're fine is like the biggest mistake we do in our generation today, because like that's the one F word that's ruining our lives, because it's easier to accept that we are fine rather than identify what's actually happening within us, go down deeper and understand what is that emotion that's holding us back. Because just if somebody asks you, how are you? You're like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
That fine can vary in different ways, but that fine covers up literally everything, because you're lying to yourself too, because that's how you deal with being able to get up every morning and do what you have to do. But hiding away from our emotions is never something that is going to help you.
Yeah.
Right. What we need to understand is that we've all been given that rush that, we chase that happiness over and over again. But what we need to realize is that these negative emotions also play a reasonably good part of our lives. And if we were to process it instead of ignoring it, just understanding, where is that coming from? What is it doing to me? Why is this happening to me? Right? Is it getting triggered more than once or twice? What is causing that trigger? And once you isolate it in terms of, this emotion is arising from this situation, once you isolate it, then this is easier to manage, right, this problem, because otherwise you're dealing with a vague emotion that you don't know in terms of how it manifests in your life. But if you were to observe yourself, saying that if A, B, C and D happens, I react in this way. And once we realize that, then we can start to address that problem. Right?
Correct, yeah.
At no point in time are you always going to be happy. I think that is a ridiculous expectation to have in life. I mean, if you look at a flower, it blooms and it wanes, right? That is the fundamental nature of life. There are going to be ups and downs, and there are going to be ups and downs. But if you can balance yourself through that up or through that down, if you can maintain that static self, that you don't get overly jubilant when things are going right for you, and you don't get overly depressed when things are not going right for you, if you can manage that internal balance, I feel then life is a reasonably good experience for you, because you're not going with the waves, you are choosing what needs to happen.
Correct.
And I think what we need to do as a generation is to accept that there are going to be bad days, and learn to deal with it rather than run away from it, pretend it doesn't exist, or pretend everything is cheery on Instagram or social media, saying that life is good, life is great, but actually go down deep down and realize what you're feeling and fix that. And that will help.
Because nowadays, if you see, like as you said on Instagram, basically social media is something which is fake according to me, because everyone is putting a hashtag called as living our best life, but if you see deep down at home, they're suffering with some problems, with some trauma, but just to show everyone that they're happy. And people should not do, this is what I feel, because nowadays youngsters, what happens is, okay, for example, I have put a post that I'm traveling to so and so place. Another friend who's sitting at home and who's feeling sad will see my post, and he will start thinking, okay, oh my god, my friend is going out and I'm sitting at home, I'm wasteless, I'm useless, I'm not doing anything. So that is how also negative thoughts occurs in the mind, and it creates a very bad image as well.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to social media, I think you need to learn to disassociate yourself. There are two ways in which this happens. One, of course, that you get triggered by seeing other people's story, right, in terms of other people's life, and you think that, oh my god, what is my life in compared to that. The other way I think social media really affects you is that when you are continuously projecting a better version of yourself online, but your real self is not that, like you said, right, they're very happy but they're actually very depressed in real life. It causes a disassociation between your own two selves, right? You're always in conflict. At one level, you're projecting that you are having the best life, and the other you're completely depressed. It is a hard emotional toll on you to take as well. I think I think the way you need to realize social media is that it is not you, right? Those followers and those comments and those likes and those shares, there's no point being obsessed about it, because that is not who you are. You need to disassociate your identity from that, right? A lot of people use it for work. I use it for work myself, right? In terms of my content form, we do that. Social media is one of our biggest part of our job, right?
Yeah, correct.
But learning to disassociate yourself from it and saying that, you know what, my identity, my self-worth is not determined by that. And that only comes from having real relationships in your life, in your real life. Right?
Yeah,
So
correct.
when I have my family, when I have my friends to go to, or when I have my husband to speak to, I know that they are real conversations. I know that, you know, they keep you grounded, saying that is not who you are. This is who you are. So you're more true to yourself here. And that is what you need to do. I'm not saying that you can't find honest people online. Definitely you can. I've met you online. I've met a lot of brilliant people online who do great work, right? There's no way you would have met each other otherwise in the real world. So
correct.
So that way social media is great, but you need to use it well to identify the right people, build the right relationships, and be authentic to your true self again. That, you know, as long as you're being real, you know, I've spoken about bad days there so many times. You know, I'm a writer, and I have actually written the fact that, you know, I keep getting writer's block so many times. There are days when not a word comes out of me. It's hard, right? And I'm not saying that you will be comfortable talking about every struggle in your life. There might be things that you want to keep personal, which is absolutely fine. But learning to disassociate your identity and your self-worth from social media, I think, keeps you sane.
Yeah, and what I can say is that if you want to live your best life, live it offline, not online. That will be a
absolutely.
Yeah, it's always good to enjoy the little moments, like how you said, you know, it's always good to enjoy. And if you enjoy with yourself, with your family, it's much better than just putting it on social media and showing others that you're living your best life. So it does not make sense.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, if you can give me 2 tips to our listeners on how to live your best life.
2 tips on how to live your best life. So one, like I said, all the answers are within you.
Correct.
Right? So spend some time, inculcate things that bring awareness to what you feel, what you like, what you do, and know for what is working for you and what is not, irrespective of answering to others. It is more in terms of just knowing for yourself what is right and what is wrong. I would say that is the first thing you need to do in terms of awareness. And the second thing I'll probably say in terms of living your best life is learning to be okay with the not knowing, right? I think a lot of us struggle with the uncertainty, struggle with the unknown, and, you know, we don't really know how the pieces of the puzzle add up together. And in life, more often than not, it adds up only in retrospective, right? Like I said, that moment, the fact that that moment in Mahalakshmi race course, at that day, I didn't know anything. I went back home and I slept, right? I just slept. I did the weekend off. You will not realize it at that point in time, but you need to trust the fact that you're being led in the right direction, right? And you know that in retrospective, when you look back, you will be able to connect the dots. You will be able to piece together the entire structure. But you may not know all of that at this point in time. So it's okay. So you need to learn to trust the process and do what you can best every single day. That would be my 2 cents.
So yeah, thank you so much, Shwetha, for coming on my show. It was really helpful, and I hope our listeners also understand a lot from our conversation. And yeah, thank you so much for coming.
I really hope so too. Thank you, Desmond. It was a beautiful conversation. I loved it. Thank you.
Well, that's all for today's episode of Something You Want to Know. I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Shwetha once again, and you know what to do. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel.